There is a silence that is not empty, but full. It hums in the space between footsteps on a hardwood floor at midnight. It fills the pause after a message goes unanswered. It swells in the moments between the falling of tears and the wiping of them away. This silence, this vast internal terrain, is where she learned to live. She wasn't always this way. She didn't come into the world whole. No one does. We are born reaching for the mother's warmth, the father's arms, the soothing touch that tells us we matter. We are taught early that to be seen is to be loved, and to be loved is to be safe. But then life teaches the opposite. The calls stop. The embrace is replaced by absence. The promises become apologies. And the ones we trusted to hold us begin to drop us, without warning. Like autumn leaves letting go of a tree they never really knew how to cling to. And so she stopped expecting to be held. Nights came where the bed felt like a coffin, not a cradle. Mornings rose like battles, not blessings. And still she survived. She began to relearn her name in the mirror. Not the name others called her, but the one her soul whispered in the dark. The one untouched by heartbreak or need. The name that meant I am. You see, Carl Jung said that loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself. And perhaps that was the first fracture she felt. Not in being alone, but in being unseen, misunderstood, watered down to fit someone else's thirst. But she stopped shrinking. She grew quiet instead. Not the silence of surrender, but the silence of listening. Listening to her own breath, her own ache, her own truth. She learned the difference between being alone and being lonely. One is a state, the other is a sentence. She chose solitude like some choose scripture, ritually, reverently, rebelliously. She made peace her religion. Not a fragile peace bought with pretending, but the fierce kind, earned through broken nights, rebuilt boundaries, and the refusal to let someone else's chaos stain her inner sanctuary. You think you can play games with her? You think your hot and cold texts, your breadcrumb affection, your emotional vanishings will leave her confused? No, she's seen it all before. And she's not confused, she's clarified. She knows now, half love is a poison. Inconsistency is a warning sign, not a puzzle to be solved. And attention without intention? That's not love, it's ego looking for a mirror. She doesn't chase anymore, because she remembers the nights when she had no one to call. The winters when the world grew cold inside her bones. The mornings when she sat at her kitchen table, eyes swollen from crying, and still got up, went to work, and smiled at strangers like her soul wasn't breaking. That woman, she's unshakable. She doesn't want a savior. She's not asking to be completed. She is not a half waiting for a whole. She is already home, and she doesn't open her door for just anyone, especially not for someone who knocks with games and leaves with silence. Because love, for her, is sacred now. Not a craving, not a clinging, not a bandage for her wounds, but a choice, a rare, deliberate offering. And if you can't meet her there, with presence, with purpose, then don't even try. She'll smell the inconsistency before your words are spoken. She'll taste the emotional vacancy behind your flattery, and she will not be fooled. Because this woman, she's not afraid to be alone. She's made a life in that aloneness. She's grown roots there, painted her walls with self-acceptance, lit her candles with resilience. And no, she doesn't need your love. She may want it, if it's real, if it's kind, if it's brave, but she will never need it, not now. Not after all she's walked through without it. So play your games if you must, but know this. When she walks away, it won't be with bitterness or blame. It will be with grace, with the quiet power of someone who has nothing to prove and everything to protect. And she won't look back, because her peace is her priority. And her love? It's not a consolation prize. It's a coronation for the one who knows how to honor it. And you? You were just another echo in the silence she already made peace with. Why does she no longer flinch when affection vanishes? Why doesn't she chase when attention slips away? Because she has seen the cycle too many times. And more importantly, she has seen through it. This is not just the story of one woman. It is the story of the wounded feminine becoming whole. The once fragmented soul who walked through fire and came back with a crown, forged from her own ashes. In Jungian psychology, we call this the path of individuation, the journey of integrating the unconscious, of becoming who we were always meant to be. And for the woman who is no longer afraid to be alone, this journey has already begun. She is not running from the darkness anymore. She has sat in it. She has met the abandoned child within her, the little girl who waited by the phone, who stayed quiet to be loved, who gave more than she received just to be enough. And she held that girl, not with apologies, but with truth, with presence, with forgiveness. That's what most don't see. This kind of strength is not built on hardness, it's built on healing. It takes years to unlearn the reflex to explain your worth. It takes seasons of silence to unhook yourself from the need to be chosen. It takes pain, raw, persistent, holy pain, to realize that your value was never up for negotiation. When Jung spoke of the shadow, he meant all that we reject in ourselves. But she faced her shadow and kissed it on the mouth. She looked at her fear of abandonment, her craving for closeness, her hunger for validation, and she stopped calling them weakness. She called them teachers. And in that moment, something shifted. She realized that every man who breadcrumbed her, who dangled intimacy like a prize, who vanished at the first sign of depth, they were not just mistakes. They were mirrors. They showed her what parts of herself still believed love had to be earned through suffering. They revealed the unconscious programming, inherited from generations of women told to settle, to be grateful, to be quiet. And she said no more. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." She is no longer calling it fate. She's calling it what it is. A pattern, a wound, a lie disguised as love. And now she's breaking it. There's a reason she won't chase anymore. A reason she doesn't respond to silence with more silence, or to emotional games with desperate pleas. It's because she understands energy now. She knows that love is not a game of scarcity, where crumbs must be clutched. It is not a battlefield, where attention is currency and affection is a weapon. Love, real love, is resonance, mutual elevation, safety, not suspense. So when someone plays games with her, she no longer tries to win. She simply recognizes the field and exits it, not in anger, but in sovereignty. She's not walking away because she doesn't care. She's walking away because she does, about herself, about her peace, about her purpose, because she's done confusing chemistry with connection, passion with presence, desire with devotion. You see, in the collective unconscious, there exists the anima, the feminine within the masculine, and the animus, the masculine within the feminine. When these forces are unbalanced, we look for the missing pieces in others. But she has rebalanced herself. Her animus is strong, focused, directive, protective. Her inner masculine no longer waits for a man to show her she's worthy. He guards her time. He protects her space. He doesn't let chaos cross her threshold. And her anima? She is deep, intuitive, loving but no longer leaking, receptive but no longer waiting. Together they make her whole. She is no longer half a heart waiting for completion. She is the entire soul, rising. This is what makes her unplayable, unshakable, because she's not fighting for a seat at the table of love. She's building her own, and only those who come with honesty, with presence, with spiritual alignment, only they are welcome. She has become what Jung might call an integrated self, someone who has embraced both shadow and light, instinct and intellect, fire and water. So what looks like coldness is clarity, what looks like distance is discernment, and what looks like indifference, that's wisdom hard-won from the trenches of emotional war. She's not afraid to be alone because she's not alone. She's with herself, with her truth, with her ancestors who whisper in dreams, with her future self who nods in approval. There is something sacred about the way she holds herself now. She doesn't demand loyalty, she embodies it. She doesn't ask for love, she radiates it. And if you can't meet her in that frequency, she will not fight you. She will simply vanish into the sanctuary of her own becoming. Because she knows, anyone who plays games with love is still at war with themselves. and she's already found peace. There comes a moment, not loud, not dramatic, when she simply knows. Not because of a final betrayal or a raised voice, or some cinematic heartbreak. No. The truth slips in like a tide, gentle and irreversible. She sees it in the way her peace dims when he enters the room, in the way her intuition knots itself every time she has to wonder, is he here for me, or just not gone yet? And that's when she realizes, this isn't love. It's longing dressed up in performance. It's potential pretending to be presence, and she can't unknow it. You see, there's an alchemy that happens the moment a woman, who has spent her life hoping someone will choose her, finally chooses herself. It is not loud. It is not angry. It is holy. It is the reclaiming of a life no longer waiting to be rescued, no longer bargaining with the universe, no longer holding her breath between texts. She breathes now fully, and in that breath, she makes a quiet vow: I will never again abandon myself for the illusion of being loved. Because what passes for love, all too often, is just control in a softer voice. It's manipulation through absence. It's affection on a string. It's validation that disappears the moment she asks for clarity. But she doesn't beg for crumbs anymore. She doesn't decipher mixed signals. She doesn't dance for scraps of attention. Not because she doesn't feel, she feels deeply. That's why she no longer wastes her fire-warming hands that won't hold her with reverence. Carl Jung once wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." She has awakened. And now, when someone plays games with her heart, she doesn't fall into confusion. She rises into clarity. She no longer sees silence as a mystery. She sees it as an answer. She no longer interprets hot and cold behavior as complexity. She sees it as immaturity. And she no longer mistakes the rush of uncertainty for chemistry. She knows now. Love is not a riddle to be solved. It is a space to be safe in. So when she walks away, it's not out of coldness. It's out of love. For herself, for the life she's built, for the peace she guards like a sacred flame. She does not slam the door. She simply closes it, gently, firmly, with the grace of someone who knows her worth doesn't need to be announced. It just needs to be protected. And here's the truth. The ones who play games never expect the quiet goodbye. They expect a reaction, a pleading, a performance, a breakdown. But she doesn't perform anymore. She simply leaves. Because there's no need to fight for a space where your soul has to shrink. There's no reason to prove your worth to someone who's already shown they can't see it. And there's no power in staying small just to make someone else feel big. She walks. And what she walks toward is not just solitude. It's freedom. It's authenticity. It's the profound knowing that she doesn't need to be held to feel whole. She is already home within herself. And maybe the most beautiful thing? She hasn't closed her heart. No, she has only raised her standards. Her heart is still open, but only to those who know how to honor it. Because love, for her now, is not an escape from herself. It is a reflection of how deeply she has come to accept herself. She will still love, fiercely, freely, fearlessly, but never again at the cost of her own soul. And if you come to her with games, if your love is rooted in fear, control, absence, or ego, you won't get a fight. You'll get silence. Not because she's broken, but because she's whole. And when you realize what you lost, when the silence you once used to confuse her echoes back with no reply, understand this. She's not punishing you. She's protecting herself. There's a sacredness in this kind of departure. It is not rejection. It is redirection, a turning inward, a reclaiming. Because she has spent enough lifetimes in fragments. Now she chooses fullness. Now she chooses peace. Now she chooses love that aligns, not one that depletes. And maybe that's the most revolutionary thing a woman can do in a world that profits from her insecurity. To know she is already enough. To choose herself, without apology, without need, without fear. So if you play games with a woman who's not afraid to be alone, remember, you're not confusing her. You're revealing yourself. And the moment she sees you're not ready for her love, she won't chase, argue, or explain. She will simply return to herself, to her truth, to her peace, like the tide returning to the sea. Quiet, absolute, free. Something changes when she chooses herself. It's not just her relationships that shift. It's the reality around her. The lens through which she views the world begins to clear, like fog lifting from a mountain ridge at dawn. What once felt like rejection now feels like redirection. What once felt like abandonment now looks like liberation. And what once broke her now blesses her. There's a quiet revolution happening beneath her skin. She no longer gravitates toward the familiar pain she once mistook for passion. She no longer romanticizes the struggle of trying to earn love. Her soul, once tethered to conditional approval, is now anchored in something deeper, inner coherence. Carl Jung believed that the psyche seeks wholeness, not happiness, and wholeness often requires loss, the shedding of illusions, the letting go of what we thought we needed, so that we might discover what we truly are. She has shed so much. The version of herself that tolerated the bare minimum? Gone. The one who waited for texts, rationalized neglect, overextended herself just to feel chosen? Buried. The woman who now stands in her place doesn't just survive, she radiates. And those around her feel it. They feel the stillness in her presence, the fire behind her eyes. They sense that she is no longer available for anything that doesn't feed her soul. No longer available for performative affection, for lukewarm love, for relationships built on ego instead of energy. She is a mirror now. She reflects people back to themselves. Some will be drawn to her light, inspired by her wholeness, challenged to rise in their own right. Others will shrink, intimidated by her clarity, unable to manipulate what they cannot confuse. And she is fine with both. She does not dim to be digestible. She does not shrink to soothe the fragile. Her peace is no longer up for debate. She knows now. Love that costs your clarity is not love. It is self-abandonment. And she's done abandoning herself. So she walks into rooms with ease. Not because she owns them, but because she owns herself. She speaks less, but says more. She listens differently, not to respond, but to feel, to intuit, to discern the frequency beneath the words. Because now, she doesn't just hear what people say, she hears what their energy betrays. And when the mask doesn't match the soul, she leaves softly, swiftly, with no explanation. You don't explain to someone why you're protecting your peace. You just do. This is the evolution that few understand until they've lived it. It is not made of grand declarations or burning bridges. It is made of subtle refusals to overextend, to explain, to endure what no longer resonates. It is made of sacred boundaries, of unapologetic stillness, of choosing quiet over chaos, truth over tension, freedom over familiarity. And this isn't just about men, no. It's about energy. It's about reclaiming time, attention, and space from all forms of depletion. Family, friends, jobs, systems. It's about trusting the compass within. She has become her own North Star. Not because she has all the answers, but because she's no longer afraid of her own questions. And maybe that's the deepest shift of all. She has stopped seeking outside of herself what can only be found within. Love is no longer a place she goes to be completed. It is the place she returns to within herself. And from there, she chooses who joins her. And when someone enters her orbit now, they don't meet a woman waiting to be loved. They meet a woman already in love, with her life, with her growth, with her solitude. And so the energy is different. They don't become her purpose, they become her partner. Or they become a passing cloud. There is no performance, no begging, no tolerating half-love in the hopes it might grow. There is only this, resonance or release. She doesn't call it giving up. She calls it alignment. And if you call it coldness, you've never known the heat of her soul when it is safe. Because when she loves now, she loves from abundance, not lack. She gives from overflow, not emptiness. She chooses you, not to feel worthy, but because she already is. And she knows, should you fumble that love, should you forget its value, she will not fight to convince you. She will walk. Not because she doesn't care, but because she cares enough not to betray herself. That is power. And it's the kind of power the world doesn't quite know what to do with yet. Because it doesn't shout, it doesn't threaten, it doesn't need validation. It just is. Soft, solid, sacred. Like the mountain that watches the storm pass without moving. Like the ocean that withdraws not in fear, but in rhythm. She has become her own sanctuary. And once a woman learns how to keep her own soul safe, there is no game you can play, no silence you can weaponize, no breadcrumb trail you can leave that will lead her back into the wilderness. She already escaped. She knows who she is. She knows what she carries. And she knows that anyone truly meant to walk beside her won't need to be convinced. They'll just know too. There's a kind of woman who moves through the world like a poem. You didn't know how badly you needed to read. She doesn't demand attention. She doesn't chase affection. She doesn't perform for approval. She simply is, a presence, an essence, a frequency. You feel her before you understand her. And when you do, it's not in words. It's in something deeper. A remembering, a recognition. Because the truth is, this journey was never just hers. It is the journey of every woman who has ever lost herself in love. Every woman who traded intuition for illusion. Every woman who believed silence meant strength and settling meant survival. It is the journey back. Back to the body, back to the breath, back to the wisdom of the bones, and the beat of a heart that finally stopped begging to be chosen. Carl Jung spoke of the self, the ultimate integration of all our parts, the union of shadow and light. The woman who is no longer afraid to be alone is living in that self, not perfectly, not always, but consciously, courageously, reverently. She has learned that being alone is not a punishment. It's a portal to stillness, to clarity, to truth. It was in that stillness that she remembered who she was before. The world told her who to be. It was there she heard her soul whisper, "You are not hard to love. You are just not meant for love that is hard." And now she loves from that place. She doesn't need chaos to feel chemistry. She doesn't need withholding to feel worth. She doesn't confuse presence with possession or desire with destiny. She knows what peace feels like now. And if your love disrupts that peace, no matter how charming, how beautiful, how convincing, it is not love she will entertain. Because her heart is no longer an audition stage. It is a temple. She's learned to sit with herself in the deepest nights, to comfort the parts of her that once begged for breadcrumbs, to celebrate the quiet wins no one sees. She has rewritten the mythology of her own life. No longer the damsel, no longer the abandoned lover, no longer the rescuer of broken men. Now, she is the oracle, the sovereign, the keeper of sacred boundaries and wild tenderness. And when someone enters her life, they are not walking into a void waiting to be filled. They are entering a garden that took years to cultivate. They are invited, not needed. They are welcomed, not worshipped. And they are expected to honor, not fix, not save, not tame, but honor the vastness of her becoming. Because she will not abandon herself again. Not for promises, not for potential, not for the fantasy of maybe one day. She lives in the now, and now she is full. Now she is love. Not the performative kind, not the desperate kind, but the kind rooted in soul, in depth, in devotion, in truth. And the world doesn't quite know what to do with women like her, because she cannot be manipulated by silence. She cannot be won with temporary affection, and she cannot be kept with inconsistent energy. You either show up fully, or you stay out of her sacred space. She does not seek revenge when wronged. She does not keep score. She simply sees. And when she sees, she knows. And when she knows, she lets go. Not to punish, but to protect herself, her peace, her path. Because she has learned that walking away is not a failure. It is a ritual. It is the final act of love for herself. It is the choosing of truth over tension. It is the sacred goodbye that echoes into freedom. So, to the one who thought she would chase, beg, or unravel, know this. She is not confused. She is not waiting. She is not broken. She is awake. And in her awakening, she is a lighthouse. Not for those who want to be saved, but for those ready to rise. And if you are not ready for the depth she brings, the softness she protects, the love she offers with intention, then let her go. Let her walk. Because she's not walking away from you. She's walking back to herself. To the garden she planted with her own hands. To the soul she spent years unburying. To the throne she now sits upon. Not because anyone gave it to her, but because she remembered it was hers all along. And she no longer plays games, because peace is no longer negotiable. And her love, it is no longer for the faint of heart.